Reaching out to the tribes, the United States appears convinced that Afghan tribes are crucial in the bid to quell mounting violence in Afghanistan. But are these tribes willing to fight for foreign forces? And what are the long-term political implications of this strategy? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the third and final special edition of Inside Story from here in Kabul. Now, with the escalating violence here in Afghanistan, new strategies are being sought. Many here in Afghanistan say that Afghans themselves should deal with their own problems. Others have a very different perspective. On his first visit to Afghanistan as the new head of the US Central Command, General David Petraeus confirmed that his new policy would be to try and engage the tribes of Afghanistan. But is it a policy that could work? We'll investigate that in just a moment. But first this from Beth and Howe.
Most Afghans won't live to see their 50th birthdays. The country is so vast and so poor that it doesn't even have a national poverty line. The World Food Programme predicts a severe food shortage in the provinces this winter. And with so many roads controlled by Taliban forces, aid is unlikely to get through. Mohammed Azimzadeh is a tailor. He's lived through many conflicts of the past 30 years, and he doesn't see the current situation improving.
I've been almost 16 to 18 years out of the country as a refugee. I have come back, but these past 2 years, the security situation is getting worse, and I'm thinking about leaving the country again.
Since the Taliban were ousted in 2001, there's been almost continuous violence across the country. The US-led coalition are fighting in a war with no clear front line and no end in sight. Until recently, fighting was mainly confined to southern regions. But now the situation in eastern and central provinces is also deteriorating. There have been attempts to reconcile with the Taliban. Peace jirgas, or councils, are made up of tribal leaders and politicians who meet to discuss what can be done and try to come up with a working agreement. So far, all such jirgas have failed. There are claims that some groups are allowing these meetings to fail because they are pressured by the Taliban. Another reason could be that since 2007, a record poppy harvest has seen some tribal income increase exponentially, something that could end if peace talks are successful. Despite these failures, many still believe the answer to the situation in Afghanistan lies with its people.
I want the police to be reinforced. Our military should be organized, and the contribution of the people to the security forces is a key solution.
Barack Obama says as US president, he'll plough $1 billion into Afghanistan and send at least 2 more brigades to support existing forces. In a country where the majority of the population are suffering in a conflict they're not even involved in, the Afghan people are hoping whatever the new president brings to the table, it'll be a change for the better. Beth Ann Howe for Inside Story in Kabul, Afghanistan.
Well, joining me now to discuss this and take this on are 3 guests, Khalid Pashtun, Afghan MP and a leading figure of Pashtun tribes in the south, Wahab Sadat, columnist and political analyst, and Zulmay Afzali, a spokesperson for the Afghan Ministry of Counter-Narcotics. Gentlemen, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Well, let's really try and set this out and discover how important the tribes are here in Afghanistan. Mr. Sadat, if I can ask you first of all, just how much influence do they have?
Well, thank you very much. I think it's very important to look at the history of this country first, in the inception of this country. The tribes have really contributed a lot to its security, to its existence structure. And especially when you go back like 30 years from now, even during the occupation of the Soviets, the tribes have contributed towards liberation a lot. And the structure of this country is still a traditional structure. What I mean is tribes are still very much prominent and very much influential in deciding. Especially if you go to the east and west and also in the southern part of the country, the tribes are pretty much stronger there. And mostly, traditionally, these tribes have been protecting this country against the intrusions.
Okay, so now, is it important, is a solution for Afghanistan to be left to fight its own peace? Should that be left to the tribal elders?
Well, like you have, like Mr. Sadat said, tribes have a huge history in Afghanistan, and I think with the capacity and with the strength that the tribes are fighting in the field of narcotics, against narcotics, and as well as in a fight against terrorism, they have a very important and a very crucial role to fight here. But just like Mr. Sadat said, tribes have the enhancement and the enforcement power to take on the control into many areas. We have certain evidence, like the provinces like Helmand, Nimruz, and Farah, where the tribes they stood against the drug traffickers. They took a tough stand on that. And we saw a good result out of this. Like at this current year, we have about 18 provinces poppy-free, 19% decrease in the cultivation, and so on, many other remarks on that.
We'll go on to drugs a little bit more in a minute or two, but first of all, Mr. Passion, let's go back to these thoughts from the US Commander David Petraeus, who's been here in Kabul and said that tribes are needed as battlefield allies for the foreign forces. Is that the way forward?
Since the beginning of 9/11 incident, January 2002, when the new government of the President Karzai interim government took power, at the beginning, these were the tribe. We used to call them AMF. These tribal men were securing the area, specifically in the south. If you go back to the chronology of the time and check those 2002, 2003, and 4, these were the people who were securing the area till 2005, when the DDR process started. And then the instability have started in the area, specifically in Kandahar, Helmand, Rozgan, and Zabul. So I personally believe if somehow they have coordinated the whole work, the process with the tribal men, the influence of the tribal elder will definitely and certainly secure the area.
But could they work in tandem with foreign forces? Would that ever work?
Well, I don't want to go back to the militia problem, like we used to have. We don't want to use them that way, but if we could use the influence of tribal elders, that would be more effective than the physically using their presence.
Okay, now, Mr. Abdullah, you were talking about the fact that there's been a moderate success in the battle against narcotics in Afghanistan, but really the Taliban are still getting a great deal of funding from the sale of opium, from the production of opium. It's not a total success at all, is it?
Well, there is no reason not to believe that the insurgency has been supported by the drug trafficking. I believe, and certainly the government of Afghanistan have been saying this for the past 2 years to the international community, that drug trafficking is a feeding tube to terrorism. And when the international forces are here, they have to attack the financer. When any bullets that is coming from the AK-47 of a Talib or Al-Qaeda hitting a foreign soldier or an Afghan soldier, that bullet was been financed by a drug trafficker.
In that case, Mr. Paston, the government's completely failed on this, hasn't it?
Well, I don't think so. There is a failure. Let me just come to this point here, because you said a little bit success. I would call it a remarkable success without any crucial international help. Right now, only the United States of America and United Kingdom support the Good Performance Initiative, which is a poppy-free status to, giving money to the provinces who get poppy-free status, and as well as to 10 more provinces who have a very considerable decrease.
But we're talking about $360 million a year.
That's maybe more than that.
That's
even more than that. That's more than that. If the situation is a chaotic situation in Afghanistan, it is very easy for a drug trafficker to take their stuff from point A to point B. But when every province gets itself rid of the poppy cultivation, we have evidence there that it is a big blow to the mafia. And I'm sure a mafia would use propaganda, mafia would use anything that could sustain their $5 billion or $6 billion income that is coming from the illegal production.
Okay, let me bring in Mr. Passion here. Wouldn't you say it's a failure on behalf of the government on this?
I think it's not only the failure of the government, it is the failure of international community. At the beginning, we've been screaming and complaining to the international community as well as the Afghan government that during Taliban government time, these were the drug lords who were supporting the Taliban at the time. And then afterward, when this new government, interim and transitional and an elected government came, this problem exists. And we've been keep telling them that if we don't deal with the drug lords, which they are financing, I agree with Mr. Afzali, that these drug lords are directly or indirectly supporting, because they're affiliated tribal-wise to each other. Talibans are getting support. The same drug lords are now the leader of the Taliban in some cases. For example, like Helmand, Kandahar, and Rozgan.
All right.
We can give you examples for that.
So how do you get at the drug lords? How do you get at the drug barons?
Well, the fact is that, again, when you go back to the root causes, you got to find out that the reason why the poppy cultivation increased was because of the lack of support of the participation of the people. Now, when you're again trying to reinforce that the tribe's influence and significance in this juncture it's very crucial, because the tribes not only rejecting the idea of poppy, but they're also supporting in terms of cultivation of the agricultural fine elements that they have to cultivate. Now again, the non-existence or the weak governance in the local and remote areas and the weakening situation of the tribes have actually given access to those drug lords to flourish. And now the solution again goes back to that area, that you go and talk to the people, that what's their benefit. You go to talk to the ordinary people, they're supporting the government, but they are looking at basic services to be delivered.
Isn't part of the solution as well giving the people an alternative to opium production?
The alternative, I would say, is a crucial solution, because then you got to give people something to eat, because at the moment we are not probably completely fulfilling the requirements of the areas that they are actually cultivating poppy. Again, which goes back to the fabric of the area in terms of tribal dynamics. When you're looking at the tribal dynamics, it can give you two types of different solutions. One is to secure the areas from the foreigners. Two is to fight poppy and then to grow lawful and legal kind of elements in the area.
The thing is, all these are good words, aren't they? With respect, it's easy to say, isn't it? But how do you implement this?
I believe the alternative livelihood is an eminent solution for the drug eradication program, but not the way to give an alternative like cash money. Of course, we disagree with that. The alternative livelihood is supposed to be like a comprehensive project to enhance the daily life, improve the economy of the region, of the south, in the east. That will really change the people, divert the people's mind to the right path.
Okay, Mr. Abdulli, just very briefly.
Yes,
just very briefly.
Just to say this, because we have the pre-planting campaign already starting, and we have been telling to the people, going to the tribes. The Minister of Counter-Narcotic himself is going to different provinces and talking to the tribes, talking to the provincial chief. We have a fatwa of mullahs stating that poppy cultivation is haram. But let me just come to this way, that poppy cultivation is not that there's something to given to Afghans by their forefathers. We hate this devil and evil phenomena. It's been by the chance of 35 years of war, mafia had succeeded to put its roots, and that's why we are seeing the problem.
Okay,
but day by day we are having success, and somebody have to recognize the success, that the 18 provinces are poppy free, 10 provinces with a considerable decrease. Now this is what happens with the few countries' help.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there right now, as we've got to go to a break. But we could talk about this all day, but there's lots of other things to discuss. But thanks for the time being. We'll be right back directly after this.